Hi, welcome to the Better Ideas Podcast. My name is Dakota Pike. This is a podcast where I interview creative and interesting people and in turn share that with you. And normally those creative and interesting people are artists of sorts, like musicians, photographers, other podcasters. I guess I can't say those things plural just yet. But yeah, so far I've had a podcaster, photographer, several musicians, and I really love interviewing artists, but I've been wanting to delve into a slightly different direction, and I'm trying to figure out the best way to go about that. But I have certain convictions and certain things that I feel it would be necessary to talk about, especially because some of the conversations that I have provide a lot of nuance to my life and my opinions and my views and the way that I see the world. So today I'm going to be airing a conversation that I had about a week ago with my friend Will Kibler. He's one of my best friends, and we go way back. So we have some pretty crazy conversations, and this would have been right after the protests in Charlottesville, Virginia got a little bit out of hand, and the whole punch Nazi thing is obviously on the up right now. And there's just a lot of polarity in the world right now, and I felt like it would be necessary to talk about it and share that with you guys, and hopefully just pull some truth from it. I know that I'm going to misspeak because I thought that this was happening in North Carolina for some reason. So I got the state wrong when we were talking about it, but it was also a week ago when I'm airing this. So, I apologize for that part. But other than that, I still feel like my stance hasn't changed much. And I still feel like we all just need to be hippies and love each other, I guess. Basically, like that rant I sent you was spawned by
I woke up to a short novel, man. That's crazy.
Yeah. It was spawned by the fact that I keep seeing all these like the anti-Nazi symbols all over Facebook.
The Facebook filter.
Yeah. And it's just like, I don't know. I've been really, really quiet about certain political things. I haven't even really got into it. I used to be the type of person that got into Facebook debates all the time and was pretty outspoken about my opinion, but then
it's just a stupid thing.
Yeah, eventually I realized it doesn't work. But it's gotten to the point now where I actually see people that I know and love who are falling for what I believe could potentially, I'm going to make the argument that they could be accidentally part of the problem. Part of the polarity and the separation.
Into the divide and conquer.
Yeah. And so that's what I want to talk about, basically, is this idea. I guess I'll just make the case, is that if you come out in opposition to something, I understand how a lot of the time that feels like the right thing to do, especially when you're in opposition to literal Nazis. I get why coming out and saying we should punch them and be violent seems like the right thing to do. But I guess my conviction or my argument would be that it's maybe not helping the situation.
Absolutely not. If anything, it's justifying retaliation in the eyes of people who, are in line with the beliefs of the white supremacists and Nazis. Like, as far as like the whole non-aggression principle goes, like it's a pretty slippery slope when you're instigating violence because it's considered acceptable. Mm-hmm. And now I think everybody is in agreement, well, rather a vast majority of people are in agreement that Nazis are bad. There's a reason, we entered the effort to eliminate them.
So I don't see where people get the switch of not being a Nazi. They go from that place to now I have to let everybody know that I'm anti-Nazi.
Or rather, I have to go out looking for Nazis almost.
Yeah, and it's like, where do you make that jump? And if, like, if you're in the middle, which I believe is most people, then are you wrong? Because a lot, apparently, like that Facebook post you showed me today, that girl would argue that if you are somewhere in the middle, that you're wrong. That saying, if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. It's kind of that ideology. And maybe that's why I don't know what I stand for, but I just know that I don't stand in opposition to any human. I want to know where there's room for that. Because I don't feel like I have a place anymore, politically or socially. Like, I literally don't know if because it's so polarizing that I don't agree with either side at all.
It's really unattractive from a moderate standpoint.
But so I either have the option to paint myself into a corner and to help people reinforce a bunch of ideas that some of them I agree with, most of them I don't. But there are things on both sides that I agree and disagree with. And I want to know where the space is for that, I guess.
Well, the people that buy into that ideology will tell you that there is no space. They'll tell you that if you are not in support of their cause and not actively punching Nazis, then you might as well be, on their side, because you're allowing them to exist. So they're kind of reinforcing the idea that, like, if the majority says it's okay to physically assault these people, and you're saying, I don't think that's okay. Well, you must be one of them. Only a Nazi would say, I don't want to punch
it's like
Nazis.
If you're not for them, you're against them, and vice versa.
Yeah.
And the thing is, I see a lot of this, mostly on the internet, but I don't see any of that in real life. I don't know anybody who is a true racist. I know that those people are out there. I'm not denying that there are real problems.
Yeah.
But I just think that painting people into a corner and making them identify with a group is not the way to fix separation and to fix these social issues that we have.
The Nazis did that exact thing,
Mm-hmm.
If you don't openly express support for us, like, you're a member of the Untermensch, and you'll be destroyed. It's kind of ironic, using Nazi tactics to fight Nazis.
That's the weird thing is that, and I know there are tons and tons of different, like, subgroups of the right and the left, and, to even say the right and the left now is just a caricature. It doesn't really mean anything anymore, because I don't really think that anybody truly identifies with the term right or left anymore, just because nobody falls under those extreme categories of what those ideologies entail or what those subgroups entail.
No real person.
Yeah, but I guess I just don't see why a lot of people I'm gonna poke fun, or I guess not poke fun, but I'm gonna poke at both sides a little bit. So the left call the right fascists. I wouldn't even say the left. I would say certain subgroups of the left. There are a lot of people going around name calling and saying that people are fascists. Yeah, I guess you could call it the far left.
When fascism on itself and the spectrum kind of aligns more with the left, so that in itself is a misnomer.
And see that's I guess what worries me is,
how do they define the enemy and the loose description of what they're fighting against?
Yeah, because it seems like they're almost both being what they would consider fascist on either side. Yeah, there is fascism of that you're either for us or you're against us, and that seems like that's a trail that leads to fascism.
That's the whole
into
core
rigid
of
ideologies.
Is if you have an opposing view, we're gonna strong arm you out of the picture. Mm-hmm. And it's a tactic both sides are kind of using, whether it's through intimidation, shaming, or actual physical attacks. Like, that's fascism. Mm-hmm. Left and right, like, it's kind of, both sides are guilty of that. Like, if you leave no room for a differentiating narrative or an outside perspective, and you're willing to use violence to suppress those ideas, you're a fascist.
Yeah. And the crazy thing is that I feel like we're at a place in time where those people with those ideas that normally couldn't act on that I believe that the internet has given them the means to organize. Like, okay, do we really have a Nazi problem, or is the issue that in a day and age where the internet exists, other people with these crazy ideologies can actually find each other, and they can organize. Yeah,
Stormfront's like the biggest website for national or white nationalists, white supremacists, and Nazis to converse.
So the internet gives us it's something that we haven't really figured out how to navigate, I think, because it's caused us to continue to have that tribal mentality and isolate ourselves from the rest of the world, but to do that while sort of intercommunicated with the rest of the world, because you can find people all over the world that are just like you, that agree with you, and it's no different from tribal mentality. It is tribal mentality, only with electronics now, basically.
Yeah, instead you're not so much having to create an enclave, because you can kind of spread your tendrils to people all over.
Yeah, think about before the 90s, these Nazis, because they probably existed before.
Oh yeah, skinhead culture goes way back.
Exactly.
Well, I shouldn't
think about how much harder it was for them to organize something like what happened last weekend. That's probably I would
it's
think
happened.
Part of the reason. Yeah,
I'm sure you've seen Klan meetings and the like.
Yeah, I mean, we're in Kansas, so there's definitely.
Well, I've never personally seen one, but yeah, there's definitely a lot of history.
I've seen pictures of like Klan meetings on our football field.
Yeah, in the high school.
Yeah.
The I'm not even gonna go there, but the KKK is probably the most substantial, well organized white supremacist organization. And yeah, they definitely rally. They definitely get together and exist. But
and it is a real problem. So I guess the question is,
you have to ask yourself, outside of wanting to have their exclusive, clubs, camaraderie, and ceremonies and all that, does their existence pose that much of a danger? Or are they just a bunch of fucking basement dwellers who like to get together and kind of, feel like they're part of something bigger?
I think that's definitely what it is.
Are they an impotent threat, or are they really as an imposing threat as the far left would have you believe? Because there is some sense of sensationalism about this whole thing. Mm-hmm. It's being shoved in your faces more than ever. Hey, this is an impending problem. If you see a Nazi, punch them. They're rapidly increasing in number. I don't know if I buy that necessarily.
See, and that's why, and this is why I would say that this separation is actually, and by identifying in opposition to any group. And I know that, Nazis, obviously, I'm not saying that you should be a Nazi or that you shouldn't oppose that ideology. What I'm saying is that just because you're not an asshole and you're not a Nazi doesn't mean that you're an anti-Nazi. You're just a human who just happens to not be a Nazi. I don't think that you have to pick sides. And everyone keeps saying, pick a side. You're for us or against us, like that Facebook post said. And it's this militant attitude,
and that's happening in our own town, nonetheless.
Yes, I mean, we live in
literally the liberal,
an outlier of Kansas for sure.
The blue county and the sea of red, the liberal enclave.
Well, and I would just say that I had this thought today that separation itself is the problem. It's not Donald Trump. It's not the far right. It's not the far left. The problem is that we want to believe in monsters. We want to believe in the enemy, and we have to have that. And with life being as, I don't want to say easy, but all of our organic needs are met.
Simplified.
And a little bit, we're not fending every single day for food and for survival. So we have to have those monsters. We have to have those things that we fight. And we all have that. We all have that battle. I would just argue that the monsters that some of us believe in aren't real. They're in our head. And Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton, these figures that a lot of people see as the monster.
The embodiment of what they disagree with.
It is the embodiment. It's an idea that they hate. And everybody has that. Everybody has their polar opposite. And I get that. But I would just say or argue that you can't be in opposition to a large group of people. You can only be in opposition to their ideas.
And more importantly, you can't alienate the majority of the people by saying, well, you're not going to agree with our small, minority of opinions. Like, well, that means you're on the other side. Like,
Yeah.
you can't shove people into a corner like that.
And I think that's because the internet's so loud that those tiny groups of people who make up the far right and the far left,
they're on the biggest platform they've ever had.
they're just the people who are talking louder than anybody else. They're the most outspoken. But I would argue that those are so few people. There's not that many people who I think legitimately believe in the rhetoric that comes from, the anti-capitalist or the disruptors or the communists, or the anarchists that all kind of disguise themselves as the left. But then there's the same thing on the other side where there's the far right and there's the alt-right and there's normal Republicans, there's moderates, there's all these little subgroups.
Libertarians.
And then you want to plant a flag in the sand and say you're either with us or against us.
Black or white,
I don't even know what
shades of gray.
Yeah, and I don't know what it means to be with you. I don't.
Yeah,
because
I'm not
it kind of changes.
To your brand of politics when you're looking at everything under such a blurry scope and painting everyone with such a broad brush.
Yeah,
I don't want to be a part of that.
Yeah, and so I guess the question is, and the argument that some people would make is that by not choosing a side, you're somehow silently participating in this game. I've heard that rhetoric spread a lot.
Yeah, that does.
That if you haven't picked a side and you're in the middle, you're their bodyguard or you're part of the problem.
You're allowing them to exist.
And this is why I wanted to record this and I wanted to talk about this, is because I feel like I am one of those people who feels empathetic towards both sides, and I am somewhere in the middle. And I kind of believe that is most people. And that when everybody that I talk to or everybody that I've met, it falls somewhere in between those things. But I don't really meet those people who fall on the furthest end of either spectrum very often. It rarely ever happens that I meet somebody who is truly racist or who is so not racist that they punch Nazis. I don't know those people.
Virtue signaling violence.
Yeah, because I would say that if someone is expressing their freedom of speech and you choose to punch them in the face, that would be kind of unconstitutional and not right. I'm not saying that I don't want to punch a Nazi in the face. If somebody literally came to my house with a Nazi flag and started just screaming at me for no reason, I'd probably want
racist rhetoric.
Yeah, then I can't say that I wouldn't punch them in the face or that I wouldn't want to or that I would even do the right thing.
But I guess go out and actively try to hunt down Nazis.
Yeah, and to try to form a sort of a militant group of anti-Nazis.
Look at Antifa. That's all Antifa does, is they try to identify people as Nazis and instigate that violence.
So, this being said, I guess my argument or what I'm feeling is that I don't want to be in opposition to anyone. I want to be for humanity and whatever that is. And I want to help bridge the gap between the two and get rid of this separation. Although, that's a pretty big task to take on, I guess, just spreading different ideas. Yeah, they definitely have. And that's the balance of the universe. There has to be that polarity. It just seems like in today's age with the internet, we have more now than ever because people can get caught in these algorithms on Facebook and Twitter where they're only hearing things that, reassure their own ideas that they want to believe. And they're not being challenged. And I'm not even saying that you need to be challenged by that opposing force, but I want to open the floor for the people who feel like sort of disingenuous towards our generation, because I don't relate. I don't relate to the these social justice warriors, but I also don't relate to the alt-right. So I'm somewhere in between, and I don't want to believe that I'm part of the problem.
Let me challenge you real quick. So, to the uninitiated, it might seem like you're saying you're okay with people being Nazis. Well, what is your opinion on people, who choose to partake of that ideology? Like,
I would say that you're misinformed.
Yeah.
And that I don't agree with anything that those people stand for. But I can't say that it's not your right, because who am I?
Right.
And I don't know, man, because I want to say that should be illegal. You shouldn't be able to march down the street with a Nazi flag. But if I say that, then I would also have to say you can't march down the street with an American flag or a Confederate flag. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, like you can't pick and choose.
Yeah, and no matter what you say. And the problem is that monsters are real. There are real problems that our society faces. The fact is that it's just too easy to paint these people as the problem. Because how are you going to tackle systematic racism? Real, true, systematic racism exists. You're gonna
systemic
racism.
I've heard them used interchangeably. I think it is systemic.
But. Yeah, I could be misspeaking there, but that's what I mean. Is that I'm not saying that by saying that I don't want to be the polar opposite of these weird neo-Nazi type people that I'm for them. I just want to be the person who is against separation. That's what I stand against, is our country being divided over these imaginary things that aren't real problems. Because those Nazis aren't hurting as many people as our broken prison system is. Yeah. Especially when it comes to the African American community.
Yeah.
So why do we not see people posting on Facebook about that every single day?
It's too complex of an issue, dude. You
Exactly.
Can't punch a private prison.
Because you can't.
You can punch a Nazi.
Exactly. You can't. But that's the thing, is just because these problems are hard doesn't mean that we shouldn't be facing them, and it doesn't mean that we should be blaming it on other people. Racism does exist. Absolutely. It is a real problem that we all need to face. But I don't think that we're going to face that by polarizing ourselves and becoming separate from each other. I think that racism can only be overcome by unity. That's what the whole civil rights movement was about. And the fact that, we have even people like in the Black Lives Matter movement saying, if you're not with us, you're against us, then you're further separating that gap between the people who agree with you and disagree with you. You're not fixing anything. And it's just, it's terrifying, but it's also, it's sad, because I want to be for unity.
Yeah, instead of being targeted for being moderate in the middle,
Yeah.
Saying, well, I'm going to paint you with that same brush as I paint the Nazis, because you're not.
And this is where I would even further myself from the rest of the population. I think that I'm done with the president. I don't think we need a freaking president. I'm tired of it. I'm tired of the way we do politics. I'm tired of the system as a whole. So I would argue that maybe by not participating in this, that you are, in a way, doing almost more good than separating yourself and creating enemies. I would argue that if you choose to just be a normal person and just try to have a net positive influence over people in your life and on the internet and things like that, and you were curious enough to, figure out your own ideas and not feel like you have to belong to this tribal group. I know that everybody does, but if you were able to separate yourself from that and just say, I don't know what the right answer is. I don't know what the solution to all these problems are, but I know that calling you a Nazi when you're probably not really a Nazi is not fixing it.
Yeah.
And if you are really a Nazi, you're an asshole, and nobody likes you. And just leave them alone.
You're digging your own grave. I want to know. That's your ideology.
Yeah. I want to know what would happen if last Saturday, when those Nazis marched, was it North Carolina?
Charlottesville. Yeah.
Yeah. When they marched, what if the media didn't give them any attention? What if everybody in that town took a vacation?
Nazi rallies
What
have
if we
happened
were
under our noses.
exactly?
People just
What
they
if we
look down their
didn't
noses at them and say fucking Nazis, just
and we
go on
gave
about
them
their
what they
lives.
want? That's the problem. They want attention. And the thing is, it's like the whole haters make me famous thing, is the more attention we give them, the more we validate them. Which is, I know, is hypocritical because we're sitting here talking about it right now and we're giving them attention. But it's already, the doors are open and the conversation's already started.
We're trying to do something different here, though.
Yeah.
We're not trying to get people to subscribe to either ideology.
No,
We're trying to make
all.
people come down, and just realize we're not as divided as we would like to think.
Mm-hmm. Have you ever met a real, social justice warrior in person?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Because I really haven't, if I'm being honest. So you've met somebody who, really believes in, everything that...
Yeah, can you say tone policing? Try to get a word in, absent-mindedly. It's almost impossible to do without stepping on some sensitive subject,
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's, I don't know, you have to be kind of conscious of the fact that not everybody can take a step back and be like, hey, what am I saying and how does it sound? Consider every possible way somebody could take that. I think that's kind of backwards. Policing, how people speak.
Yeah, and not recognizing that a lot of our
Check
speech...
yourself.
Yeah, and a lot of our speech is cultural, and it is going to take some time. And that's another issue, I guess, that stems from this, or another variable in this huge problem that we're having of what I would call polarity. I think that is the biggest threat that our country is facing right now, is the separation of its own people.
You touched on something pretty interesting. It's so appealing to people to belong to something like that.
Mm-hmm.
There's people who, it's like they make their identity their biggest hobby, and that's pretty problematic.
Identity politics.
Yeah,
yeah.
You identify with whatever it is you subscribe to so much that you're almost militant in expressing what you believe in, and it's like, it's kind of egotistical in a way, saying this is who I am, and if you have a problem with it, just be.
Yeah.
Just be.
Yeah, that makes sense. And maybe that's definitely part of the problem, is that we live in a culture that allows you to validate your own ideas so much that you can form this identity that people don't disagree with, because you don't give them the chance to before you block them.
Yeah.
Or before you try to discredit them. And I think that a lot of that stems from the fact that we just aren't having enough face-to-face conversations. We have a lot of this interaction, a lot of these problems are because of this social media culture, where people, they have their ideas, they have their echo chambers, and they're projecting just opinions. What good are these opinions, though? That aren't based in fact, they're just people's opinions. I'm all for ideas and exchanging ideas and even exchanging opinionated ideas. But the strong ones will continue to exist and the bad ones will die off eventually. Unless you can form a bunch of small groups that don't disagree with you. And then those ideas are just going to live on forever. That's how you get Nazis, is by Nazis hanging out with other Nazis for long periods of time, and then they become more extreme in their ideologies.
Well, if you just punch them, they won't get together. It's that
Apparently.
simple. Just punch them.
I want to say, too, I've seen a lot of people posting,
I'd fuck a Nazi up if I saw. I'll punch a Nazi any day.
and it's like, dude, have you ever been in a fight? Skinheads and Nazis have a reputation for beating some ass because, they do. Don't just punch somebody in the face in the hopes that you'll floor them with the first hit if you've never thrown a punch. It's almost kind of silly.
That says something about
how emboldened people are.
Yeah, and how they're not gonna actually do it though. Yeah. That's the
Paper
thing.
tigers.
Is that a lot of
Don't
this?
challenge them, dude.
I would challenge most, like, I know several people.
It's not worth the charges.
Yeah, but I've seen several people who claim that they would punch a Nazi, but I don't know anybody who actually has. I know that it does happen, and it's definitely out there, but it's just I don't see these problems anywhere but the internet a lot of the time. And I recognize that's because we're literally dead center in the middle of America, and we're not exposed to a lot of what other people are exposed to. I can recognize that, but at the same time, I can also recognize that we are just two kids from Kansas who are able to form a nuanced opinion and see all of these different perspectives, and who can have a conversation like this without having to belong to some group.
Yeah, and I'll say you and I, we kind of differentiate in a lot of things, but that has never stopped us.
Yeah,
from
but
coming
imagine if
together.
we had all of these conversations over Facebook. Would they go as good as they normally do?
It definitely wouldn't be as impactful.
No, it wouldn't. And the thing is, all everybody's doing is trying to project their they're not trying to, but they are projecting all of their insecurities on society and trying to fix it with their opinions.
And their identities.
And their identity. And those two things sort of coincide to create what I believe is part of the problem.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm trying to relay, is that there are both sides of the spectrum, but one couldn't exist without the other. Trump wouldn't be Trump without Hillary. Like, that might be a
Trump
bad
was Trump
example.
before Hillary.
That's true. That
He's
might be a
always
bad
been a fucking
example, but I'm
character.
saying that polarity, that the far right and
Yeah.
the far left, they couldn't exist without each other. It's the yin and the yang, you know?
Yeah, and he doesn't even really represent the far right.
No,
honestly.
he's actually pretty moderate.
He's been a lifelong Democrat, too, up until initially he was
Yeah.
willing to run as an independent.
Yeah.
But, yeah, we saw how that went for Ron Paul.
Yeah. We
Ran-
saw how that went for everybody who's ever tried.
Gary Johnson did pretty good this last election, but even for me, like as a libertarian, Gary Johnson he's a bit too moderate to claim to be the champion of libertarians. Like his
Yeah.
stance is not firm on a
Yeah.
lot of things.
I'm not knowledgeable enough, I don't think, to comment on
Yeah, let's not get
individual. Yeah, and see, that's the thing, is that's not my battle. Like, I've
Yeah.
realized that now after going silent with politics. It's kind of the same thing that I did with Christianity, where you almost kind of have to step out of it before you can kind of reintroduce it in a way that's more mindful. And if you step outside of that, like, I've been a prisoner of my own ideology. I know what that's like, and I know how those people feel. And I know that for me, I had to disconnect myself from all of my ideas, everything that I believed up until that point, before I was really able to look at it objectively and take what was good.
What made you take a step back, though? What was the turning point to where you were willing to kind of drop your stance and look at it from that perspective? What was it for you personally?
Honestly, man, it sounds bad, but Christian college, I think, kind of started it. Like, literally kind of spawned the thought of, like, oh, I've been really involved in this since I was 12. And then by the time I got to college, I was just like, I hit a point where I was like, I don't know if I believe a lot of what these people believe. I believe in Jesus and I believe in his teachings, but as far as everything else that comes with it, I'm not really sure if I identify as part of this. And obviously at the time I didn't recognize it. Now it's more in hindsight. I see that now as kind of the turning point, but it took me at least up until this past year. So from the age 19, well, I guess it would have been late, like 18 to 22. So for that 3-4 years or so, I didn't really know where I was at with my faith. But I feel like that was actually kind of a gift. Is as like C.S. Lewis, I think, was the one who said that sometimes walking away from God is the most religious thing that you'll ever do. And I see where he's coming from with that, because I stepped out of it, and now because of that, I'm able to look at Jesus' teachings in a more objective way. Yeah, I'd love one. Is that cool?
Yeah, absolutely.
But I'm able to look at
Sipping on Boulevard Unfiltered. Shout out.
Boulevard wheat. Yeah, I'm able to look at those things that I used to believe, and some of them with disgust. If I'm being honest, there are things that I believed at and that I would have reinforced for other people and even taught other people if I had the opportunity, that now I would hate talking to me. You know, I would hate talking to 12-year-old me about faith.
You're proof of the ability to change an ideology like that. I mean, just from having known you as long as I have, you were pretty grounded in your beliefs, and people can change, people grow. You know, people may have realizations. People, they learn as a person through experience.
Yeah, I see everything in. I think I might have talked to you about this before, but I see it all in 3 phases. Everything. I see everything, and people. You can romanticize it however you like, but I've been romanticizing my past in this idea of the 3 phases of consciousness, or the 3 phases of order, chaos, reorder. And I feel like from the time I was 12 and I discovered Christianity, I discovered an ideology that I believe did lead me to God. However, it was still an ideology, which is a byproduct of God. But I believe that everything gets to the point where it will face chaos. And that happens to all of us. There will come a point in everybody's life, and it's this idea of being dead to the flesh. It's what the Bible talks about, is you have to become dead to yourself. You have to die and kill your own ideas before you can really rebuild and get to that reorder period.
It's like the rock bottom principle.
Yeah, it's like that. Like I said, you can romanticize it in so many different ways, because I think it's like a truth that reoccurs all throughout history and in everybody's life. It's that idea of the hero archetype, where the hero has to embrace the dragon before he can overcome it. You know, you have to die to all of your own ideas before you can actually look at them objectively and see them for what they are. Because when you're in it, you don't know you're in it. When you're stuck in an echo chamber, you don't believe that you're in an echo chamber.
You believe that you're right.
Yeah.
Above all.
It's like you never know that you needed it till you got it. Kind of that idea of when I guess, stepped away and then came back, and I found now what I would actually consider truth. I really don't think I saw the truth that Jesus was talking about for years until I actually stepped away from it and looked at it in a different way, I guess. And now I hold it even to a higher standard. I hold Jesus' teachings to a higher standard than I did when I identified as a Christian. However, I don't even know if I'm a Christian. Because by the standard of what most people would call Christians, I'm probably not. But I believe a lot of the same things, and I believe in those truths. I believe in treating people as God, or treating people as Jesus, because that means that, you know, you're being a genuine and authentic and loving human being. I believe in doing that, and I absolutely believe, you know, as you have done to the least of these, you've done to me. You know, like that idea that you should treat everybody the same. You should treat everybody as if that was God that just walked through your door. So I think that the byproduct and the dogma of Christianity caused me to not see things clearly, but stepping out of it, I could see just the parts that benefited me and just the parts that I still hold. But I was able to shed off a lot of the bad ideas. And I still have hope that there are people out there who can do that, who are in the far right or the far left, who can just take a step back, take a breather.
Just have an epiphany.
Yeah. Yeah, just have an epiphany.
Drop
Go out and do that
DMT,
tomorrow.
Talk to some otherworldly beings, and just grow.
That would help. I wouldn't recommend that to everybody, though.
Yeah, don't start off.
There are definitely some people who shouldn't do that. But, and that's the thing is I don't really think that there is any one way. I think that truth is like a prism, and there are so many different ways of looking at it. But I think that we're all getting at the same thing. And that's love. And that is not separation. That's what I know it's not. I don't know what it is.
Human element.
Yes.
Almost.
Recognizing that you don't hate those people marching on the street. You hate their ideas.
You hate that they disagree with you on some level.
Yeah. But that's the thing is that you projecting that hatred onto other people is just projecting the things that you can't face within yourself.
And you're harboring hate within yourself.
Yeah. But that's the thing, though, is everybody has that hatred.
Absolutely.
The question is, can you embrace it, or are you going to project it on other people? Because those people don't hate you. You hate those people because you're afraid of those parts of yourself. I think that an enlightened individual could empathize with those Nazis. I can't say that I'm quite there yet, but I do think that they are human and that I feel bad for them in some way, that they've been misled into being terrible human beings. But I recognize that they are human and even they can change. But by separating myself from them and calling them the enemy, they will never change because I only validate their ideas by standing against them, which is another thing that I learned from Christianity. Because if you're a Christian, you stand in opposition with the majority. And
the majority as in, like?
Just most people, I would say that most people, a lot of people claim Christianity that actually aren't, but most people, kind of aren't really a Christian. And that's fine. I'm not commenting on, whether or not that's a good thing, but I'm saying that the Christians that get it right don't oppose non-Christians. They love them. They love their enemy.
They accept their choice.
Yeah, exactly.
They recognize
and they don't use their opinions and their ideas to try to change them. They lead by example. And I don't want to be an example of separation. That's my problem.
Yeah. Because, if you're buying into the polarization, you're just fueling the fire. You're ensuring that there will be future conflicts. You're adding to that separation.
Exactly.
So
and
the question
part
is,
of the problem. I'm not saying that you're not the good side of the problem. You're the white side of the yin yang, or whichever side you want to call good. I shouldn't say that actually.
Yeah,
either one.
Neutral.
You might be on the right side of history, but you're still part of the problem. You're not the problem, but you're contributing to it.
So how do you get people to let go of their egos on that level, and to just acknowledge that instead of wanting to be so almost oppressive in enforcing their beliefs? How do you get people to grow out of that? I think that's one of the most crucial things right now, because it seems like as of now that's a really popular trend, is establishing your identity and owning it. And if you got a problem with it, well, you're my enemy, and I'm gonna smash you.
Yeah,
kinda,
definitely.
Like, how do you get people out of that mindset that it's okay that people exist who don't agree with you? And how do you get over the fact that they're not gonna have any real effect on your life?
Yeah.
And just being content with the fact that people are different, whether they have shitty beliefs or not.
Yeah.
Just accepting that you're not gonna change them.
Yeah.
You're certainly not gonna change them by punching them.
I guess I'm sort of an optimist in the sense that I think generally things are getting better. And you can definitely argue this point.
Yeah, unpopular opinions, I feel like they're going to oust themselves. Like, Nazis are digging their own graves. You see a lot of people losing their jobs over this fucking protest because they were in attendance. And they have a black boss. Shit like that. Like, they're digging their own graves.
Yeah.
They're not going to live forever. That idealism is not going to carry on forever.
Yeah. And well, that's sort of the evolution of ideas, you know. The strongest ones will survive.
And so,
That's
yeah.
why these objective truths, I believe, keep showing up all throughout history. That's why we get a Jesus figure or a Muhammad or a Gandhi or a MLK. We get these people who speak truth because there are things in this world, I think, that are here to unify us. But there are also all of these opposing forces. It's the balance of the universe. But I am an optimist in the sense that I believe that generally things over time, if you look through all of human history that we've recorded, they're getting better. There are more people now, I would think, that have their organic needs met than any other time in history. What other time in history were the poorest parts of America holding an iPhone 7?
Right?
I'm not saying that that's not a comment on welfare state or anything like that.
No.
But the fact is that our organic needs have been met.
The standard of living is at an all-time high.
Yeah. But I'm not going to say that there's less suffering in the world or that there's more. I don't know. I don't know if anybody can really answer that question, but I guess what I'm getting at is that there is truth and there is lie. And I believe in truth. And I believe that us separating it's a lie. It's all one big lie. The monster, the hero, it's all you. It's all
ruse.
Yeah.
It's meant to mislead.
You want to believe in that. And I get it. We've been hunter-gatherers for the past 400, or I don't know if it's 400. I think it's probably closer to 200,000 or 300,000 years. And we had to fend for our lives. We had real demons to fight. I'm not saying that the ones that exist now aren't real or that your struggles aren't valid. I'm not trying to discredit the difficulty in life because life is hard for everybody, even when your organic needs are met. But you have to embrace that monster within yourself because Donald Trump is not it. Hillary Clinton is not it. It starts with you. I don't know if that's the solution, but I definitely don't think that painting everybody who doesn't agree with you as the enemy is the solution either.
It's backwards.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Because you're shutting yourself out from progress and understanding.
Yeah.
You're putting a line in the sand and saying, I will not move. I am right, you are wrong.
And the joke is that you drew the line. It's not real.
Yeah,
you know?
what the fuck is real?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you talk about nationalism, like that's a whole nother thing, is that these are all just imaginary lines. They're all arbitrary, and I get that some of it is necessary, but
I love this country.
Me too. I love America, and I'm glad I was born here.
That's a sense of nationalism. But yeah, there's extremes.
I would say that I don't know if I really don't know. I think no matter what, if I say anything, I'm going to get painted into a corner, So it doesn't really matter what I think that I am.
People will try to pick apart what you say no matter what.
Yeah, but I would say that I am thankful that I was born here, but I don't think that I'm better because I was born here.
You're a white American male. You have it about as good as it comes.
Yeah. So who are we to be talking about any of these issues, I guess,
That's not even fair to say.
No,
I know the joke. I know the joke you're making.
That, yeah.
You can't invalidate somebody's beliefs or opinions because, well, you represent the majority, so.
Yeah.
Everybody knows suffering on one level or another. And to proclaim whatever idea it is that you belong to proclaim, well, people of my set have suffered more than anybody else. Therefore, you're invalid. You have no right to speak. That's ignorant. It's important to understand that everybody has suffered and understand it's part of the human condition.
Yeah.
And the only way that we can make it better is through that understanding and accepting the humanity that is within all of us. It's unifying,
Yeah. So do you think that's the solution? I mean, because it just seems
I
too
think
easy.
the short-term solution is getting people to shut their mouths and open their ears.
Yeah. To spark curiosity instead of opinions. Everyone wants to form an opinion. Like, why is that the first thing?
Because they want to identify that opinion as who they are. They
Do you
want to
think
belong
that
to that.
is that an evolutionary thing? Like, okay, when you see a snake, you have that reflex. I think that's evolutionary, you know?
Yeah,
So
I'd
when
say
you
so.
see something you disagree with, it's a reflex to just assume that it's something else?
That... Because
is it for survival, I guess? Is it a defense mechanism?
No, because the person would have to identify a physical threat in order for that to be instinctual. I think that's something learned. Like, you don't just... You can't identify... Okay, if you're a hardcore conservative and you see a Hillary voter, you're not going to snap into full alert mode. Like, I can tell. I know. Yeah. They're a threat to me. Like, that's something
I guess
that's learned.
Identifying threats, though, even if it's on a subconscious level, is that part of our evolution that we just haven't got past yet? Like, that pattern recognition.
Humans are distrustful to begin with. I think we're naturally inclined to be distrusting, and that's why interpersonal bonds like that are so important. It's because when you have found people that you can trust and you feel safe around, like, odds are you're gonna have those people in your lives for most of your life. Like, you're gonna keep them around.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's pretty beneficial, and it's part of our natural biology. But I mean,
okay, we're at 50 minutes. So, what could you take away from this conversation?
What could I take away from this conversation?
Yeah. I guess we'll both do a takeaway.
Yeah.
This
is one of those different episodes from kind of just talking about current events, what's going on. We never really start out with an actual structure of conversation. We just know what we want to talk about.
Yeah.
I think
and I like it. You know, I feel like it's fruitful. Like,
it's natural.
Yeah.
You were trying to keep me from talking earlier because I was getting too into it. Like, no, save it for the podcast.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's good.
Yeah. Takeaway.
Takeaway, don't buy into left versus right, black versus white, red versus blue. Acknowledge the similarities between people. Because if you oppose extremists, that's fine. But you're only going to make them more emboldened and active by hunting them down
and giving
threatening
that
them.
Amount of attention.
Yeah.
Giving them any attention is probably
if you're going to give them attention, let it be constructive attention. Do not instigate violence against people because their beliefs are in line with yours, no matter how shitty. Non-aggression principle.
I agree.
What about you? What are some takeaways?
I guess for me, I feel like everybody could spend less time on the internet and
go outside.
Try to have more conversations like this face to face.
Yeah.
A face to face conversation will fix a lot of these problems because when you have to look at somebody in the eye, even if you strongly disagree with that person, if you sit there and talk about it long enough, you're going to find some common ground.
Absolutely. I think there was a gentleman, he was black, and he makes it a business of convert, well, not necessarily a business, but he makes it his business to convert Klansmen, KKK members, to leaving it just by befriending them, being an understanding, cool guy. And that's what this guy does. He converts white supremacists. He puts himself in danger to make people realize that we're all humans. I gotta
see, that seems like a pretty effective and altruistic way to go about that and go about changing people.
It's not impossible is the takeaway.
My takeaway is don't hate, love your enemies because they're human. And if you identify anyone as the enemy or the other, you are part of the problem. I don't believe that not picking a side makes you part of the problem. I believe that standing in opposition to a human creates problems no matter what side of history you think you're on.
Daryl Davis is his name. Look him up.
Daryl Davis.
Daryl Davis.
Check him out.
We could all learn from him.
Well, say it was a good one.
Absolutely. Thanks for listening, guys.
Yeah. Thanks again for sticking around till the end, guys. I hope you enjoyed that. It was very therapeutic for me. It actually all started with a rant that I recorded on my phone and sent to Will. That's what we were talking about in the beginning. And I don't know what to do with that. I just felt a little bit heated, and I didn't have anybody to talk to, and I figured I could maybe use it for something eventually. I'm not sure. If you guys want to hear it, let me know, but I probably won't put it up anywhere for now. But I do feel really passionate about these types of things, and I would be curious to see if we can continue to do conversations like this and maybe make kind of a side thing and make room for nuance. Make that a whole separate thing, but, still continue to do the interviews with artists and local talents and things like that, because I'm interested in both, and I think that it's important that we're all having this conversation together and that we're all staying level-headed about it and loving each other. Emphasis on that part, guys. Don't pick a side. Don't punch anybody. We're all Americans here, and I love all of you.